Well, apparently it's Garrett TPE 331 week here on the BLANCOLIRIO channel as we look into a skydiving accident of a Cessna Caravan 208B with the Garrett engine here in Cross Keys Skydiving Airport, New Jersey. Here's what we know so far. My name's Juan Brown. It's the 3rd of July, and this video, like all the others, is brought to you by the folks that sponsor this channel here on Patreon, so I don't have to dress up in a clown suit to satisfy the algorithms to get on YouTube. So this accident occurred yesterday, Wednesday, the 2nd of July, Cessna 208B Supervan 900, which means that this Caravan has been converted from the Pratt & Whitney PT6A engine over to the Honeywell TPE 331 engine, which we've been talking about all week. More on that later on. The aircraft is owned by Arnie Aviation LLC and contracted out to the Skydive Cross Keys operation there at Cross Keys Airport. The N number is November 716 Mike, and this is not this aircraft's first rodeo. The aircraft took off from runway 27 at 5:19 local time, and shortly afterward the pilot reported engine problems. An attempt was made to turn back to the airport, but the aircraft crashed. ADS-B data shows that the aircraft approached runway 27 and flew in orbit in order to lose altitude, and the final data point was on the final approach to runway 27 at 5:23, and a video at the scene of the accident shows the aircraft came down in the trees just short of the runway 27. They didn't quite make it. The airport runway 927 is a paved runway 3,500 feet long by 50 feet wide with an airport elevation of 162 feet, and the weather at the time of the accident was good, with the winds 210 at 8 knots. There was one pilot on board the aircraft and 14 skydivers, 3 of which were seriously injured. Let's start with the ADS-B data from ADS-B Exchange. Looks like a normal takeoff of runway 27. That was, over 3,000 foot long runway, and a climb up to about 3,000 feet. And during the climb, the aircraft is initially climbing out at over 1,600 feet per minute with the help of the powerful new Garrett engine, but then right around here, the pilot begins a bit of a descent, 300 feet per minute, 256 feet per minute, 128, 130 knots, down, picking up the rate of descent to 1,600 feet per minute, 2,200 feet per minute, 2,000 feet per minute rate of descent, but at 1,650 feet, remember the field elevation here is less than 200 feet, so the pilot is too high and too hot to make the runway, so he attempts this unstabilized approach, descent, and turn, getting, well, that's only down to 1,025 feet, down to 96 knots, and then comes up short of the runway, landing in the woods out here at 3,000 feet per minute rate of descent at the last data point, 111 knots. So it doesn't appear that he stalled the aircraft. This ground speed track appears that he maintained control of the aircraft, though when you rack that aircraft up if you're up to a 60-degree bank turn, you're going to increase your stall speed by as much as 40%, but it looks like he maintained control of the aircraft through here all right, but this unstabilized approach meant that he came up short of the runway. There's a good video out here on Flightline Aviation, just released 8 days ago, comparing the difference between the Grand Caravan and the Supervan and what some of the main differences are. And the big difference is the exchange of the Pratt & Whitney PT6A engine at 675 horsepower or so up to the Garrett TPE 331 pumping out nearly 900 horsepower and adding this big 4-bladed Hartzell fully feathering propeller. Now, this is a very popular option for skydiving operations. In fact, we've already covered another recent accident involving one of these aircraft, I believe out in Arizona. But this is the typical configuration for the seating configuration for the skydivers. It's bench seating on the side with just little straps to hold you in. So that's why we had so many injuries in this crash. You're not seated and strapped in a more conventional configuration because you're meant to jump out of the aircraft, hopefully before it crashes. But in this case, at that altitude, the aircraft did not achieve a high enough altitude to allow the jumpers to safely escape. Well, yeah, at 3,000 feet, you could jump out of the aircraft safely from here, but at this point they're figuring, well, we're just going to come on back and land. Whatever the problems cropped up rather quickly, and pretty soon the aircraft was below a safe altitude to jump out of, and it doesn't look like they're over a very great area to jump out of as well. Looks like a pretty highly populated area before they get back over towards the drop zone. And no telling what sort of parachute operation they were rigged up for. Here's the outfit that does much of these conversions over to the Garrett engine, 900 horsepower, and you get the Hartzell 110-inch 4-blade fully featherable propeller. So one of the first questions investigators will have is, what was the condition of the propeller at the time of the crash? Was it windmilling and creating an excessive amount of drag, or was the pilot able to get it feathered? Had the pilot been able to get the propeller feathered, he should have been able to make the runway no problem. Now check out this 15-year-old video from Texas Turbines comparing a head-to-head comparison between these two different aircraft configurations on floats. Now remember, the PT6A is a free turbine engine, so it takes a little while to spool that engine up, and one of the great advantages of the Garrett engine is that it's a direct drive engine and you get thrust almost immediately as soon as you demand it from the power levers. Now they're going to launch here at the same time, so you'll see that spool up time. So there's the Garrett powered aircraft obviously on the right, spooling up out of the hole right away, and the PT6 powered aircraft here on the left quickly falling behind. And look at that, the Garrett powered Supervan is already off the air, off the ground, off the water, and climbing away at over 1,000 feet per minute. And the stock Caravan is still back here on the water. There he is, just breaking the water now. So huge difference in performance, and that's why these guys love to use these conversions for these skydiving operations. Check out the link below for the rest of this video. Another big advantage of using this conversion in skydiving operations is the increase in TBO, or time between overhauls, of the engine. The stock PT6 has a time between overhauls of approximately 3,600 to 4,000 hours, and the TBO on these engines can go as long as 7,000 hours. And these TBOs can vary depending on what sort of programs you're operating the engine under. But a longer time between overhauls. And the cost of one of these conversions used to be about $500,000. No telling what it is today. So investigators will be looking for the cause of this engine failure, and for a more complete overview of the TPE 331 engines, review the last couple of videos I just did earlier this week on this power plant system. Another excellent video to review is this one by Bob Vrabel, the TPE 331 family of engines, published by the Concord Battery Corporation. Goes into great detail about these engines. Now, this particular airframe has had a bit of a checkered past. As soon as I pulled up this report, two other reports came up for November 716 Mike. And look at that, just 1 year ago to the day, Monday, 3 July, well, minus 1 day, same operator, Arnie Aviation, the aircraft was converted over with the TPE 331 engine. The pilot was returning from her 5th skydiving run of the day. During the landing, the flare seemed insufficient, and the nose landing gear collapsed during touchdown, and the aircraft continued off the side of the runway and came to a rest in the grass. See, this was in Suffolk, Virginia. The airplane sustained substantial damage to the engine mounts, so investigators will be wanting to look at this. Here's a look of the damage from that last accident. A bent engine mount shown right here, and a busted nose gear shown over here. Then, back in 2010, this aircraft was in its original stock configuration, it looks like, as a Grand Caravan, and overseas was involved in an incident where the aircraft ran off the right side of a runway on landing. After leaving the runway, it crossed a drainage ditch and struck a pile of rocks before coming to a rest with its nose and right main undercarriage collapsed. So this probably was the inspiration to go ahead and do the engine conversion, as this probably involved a prop strike and some engine damage as well. And in this accident, the registration was different, but the serial number is the same, 0746. Now, about skydiving operations in general. Skydiving operations tend to have a higher accident rate than other forms of revenue flying. Skydiving operations typically operate under FAR Part 91, even though you are paying for the service of flying on board this aircraft. Through a loophole, they're able to operate under FAR Part 91 instead of FAR Part 135 and the higher level of regulation that Part 135 requires. And that's been a bone of contention with the NTSB for a long time, and there's an excellent article written here by my friend Paul Bertorelli. See the link below, as he's a skydiver and he sees both sides of the situation here. And this graph here kind of roughly highlights the major difference between the different FAR parts. General aviation, regulated under FAR Part 91, is shown in the pink or salmon color here. Accident rate per 100,000 flight hours over the different years. And then Part 135 type operations are shown down here in the yellow. And then Part 121 operations shown in the blue. So you can clearly see there is a different level of safety that goes along with the different levels of FAR regulation. And the NTSB would like to see skydiving operations operated under a little more professional and more highly regulated sort of environment. And if one of my first jobs was flying for a skydiving outfit, in fact, one of the bigger names in skydiving here in Yolo, California, years ago, and he's long since retired by now, but he's on board with this as well. But, you know, things are just simply different out there in the drop zone. It's a different environment, and they do suffer a higher number of accidents than certainly other forms of Part 135 flying. And a lot of it has to do with training and maintenance and professionalism of the crews. So was this a maintenance-related accident? Was this a training-related accident? Was the seating configuration a contributing factor in this accident? We'll find out in the preliminary report, and certainly by the final report in about a year and a half's time. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here. Cross Keys, New Jersey is located just south here of Philadelphia. 3,500 foot long runway at 162 feet. And look at this. You know, that's my first name. It's Thomas Juan Brown. Anybody know anything about this air park? Named after apparently me.